guys, welcome to another episode of Today with Ray. I'm your host, Rhema T, and this is the show that highlights everyday entrepreneurs. I'm super excited to talk to this week's guest, my Leadership Wilmington classmate. I have Barrett Earney with Earney IT. Thank you for being on the show this week.
Thank you for having me here. I'm excited.
I am too, and you guys can't see it, but he has some really cool socks on that I just saw. Oh. And is that a rainbow?
I don't know. I actually don't.
So they look like they're mountains. They're mountains and rainbows.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he said, lift your foot up more.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So my kids and my wife, they pick out,
so that's
a lot
super,
of cool stuff for me.
That's super awesome. Yeah, look, I'm not going to say that I have ADHD, but that literally was I have to talk about it. Anyway, we're going to get started with this interview, guys. Barrett, tell us a little bit about yourself and why it is that you became an entrepreneur.
I love that question, too, because I was actually thinking about it on the way over here, and I feel like, and I'll just start off. So I feel like I've always worked in some form of business.
Okay.
Whether I was just a little kid and we always had, my brother and I had, lemonade stands. Mm-hmm. He would sell seashells at the beach.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I feel like that there's a component of that. My dad and my mom both always just encouraged us to have that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. So from a young age, we were, whether it was being involved in the family business, my dad's an accountant here. And so he started out, it was just him, and he was also a full-time college professor. Wow. And his background is, he grew up on a dairy farm. Mm-hmm. And so you work all the time.
Yeah.
So for us, I think just growing up, we were always encouraged to do that, just to have that kind of entrepreneurial. I didn't know that's what it was. Mm-hmm. And I think only recently have I figured that out. And so I was talking to somebody because I've got my IT practice. So we have Earney IT, and we focus on cybersecurity, really helping businesses, with IT needs. But I've always been involved. So we have Earney and Company, which is a family accounting firm. And accounting is not my background.
Okay.
That is not, my brother has the math skills. I never had them, as good as he did. But obviously growing up in the family, we were just always involved in some form of business. And when I talk to other people about their businesses, I just get excited about, what are they doing? How are they, how are they doing this? And I'll just share this. When my wife and I were dating and then we eventually got married, my dad was talking to my wife, and she worked for Chanel, but she was in the mall. Mm-hmm. My dad started asking her all these questions about the business, well, how much do you sell of this? And when do your customer, and she thought for a moment, he was almost making fun of her.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. At first, she's like, why is your dad asking me all these questions? Yeah. And he was just wanting to know about this business and what did she do and how did when were your customers and how much sales and and so
just
when
picking it apart.
Yeah, he just had this interest in it, and I think that's translated.
Okay.
I just love talking to other people about what their business does, and if there's things that I can do to help out to make it more efficient or better, that's great. But that's just coming from experience,
right?
My own mistakes and everything. So I hope that kind of answers it.
It does, which we're going to dive into some of the hard choices and mistakes that entrepreneurs have to make. Yeah. I love that you've always been surrounded by it to the point where you were kind of oblivious to the term entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Tell me how it is you and your brother kind of translated from the dairy farm to branching out to these multiple businesses. You said your brother kind of has the mathematical brain around the accounting, but really talk to us about your experience of the journey of entrepreneurship from the dairy farm to where you kind of are right now.
So I'll just say, I never worked on a dairy farm. That was my dad, but my family lives in Wisconsin, and so we love going there and visiting, and I think it was that he had that hard working, sort of spirit that he always instilled in us. And I feel like the journey is really interesting because when you are young and you're, work is work, right? Mm-hmm. It's not always easy, but I feel like they made, and my parents made, both learning fun and enjoyable. They always, and it wasn't so much academics. Like, it wasn't going to school as much as it, getting these grades or
Right.
achievements or anything like that. It was, what are you learning?
Life experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I remember when I was, and both my brother and I did this, like Tidal Creek Food Co-op.
Okay.
Like, I remember volunteering there and like stocking the shelves.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I could have been more than 12, 13, 14, somewhere in that range.
Right.
Right. I'm old now, so, But the idea is that, like, those like, that was teenage years.
Right.
And we did it. It was a great experience. Like, I think that helped me appreciate, okay, that's how this system works.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was my first retail
Right.
type experience. And then just as time goes on, like, when you're in elementary school, you do, like, it's, the lemonade stands, those type things.
Yeah.
You move up to high school. It's how can I make money and, support myself
Yeah.
in a way that is beneficial. I always had high aspirations. Like, I'm going to start a software company and I'm going to be the next Bill Gates or this or that.
Right.
Like, I don't know if I'd want to be Bill Gates, but, pick somebody, right? Like,
right.
You get somebody cool.
Yeah.
And maybe 25 years ago he was, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I always I had those kind of desires. And it wasn't so much me. I just thought, how much fun would that be to start a company?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mind working for other people. In fact, I think about it, like, most of what we do now, we're working for other people anyway.
Right.
You're a small business owner.
Look.
You're not, you're working for yourself.
Yeah.
But really, you have so much more responsibility.
Yeah. You're at the mercy of other people, honestly.
100%. Yeah, no question. And I think whether that was, I remember watching pets for people.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I can turn this into a business. No, that didn't work out so
Yeah.
well, right? Or we used to we'd help people clean. We'd house sit for when people go out of town, whatever it was. And we had to kind of earn it.
Right.
I mean, I think about with my parents, they never just said, okay, here you go.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They wanted us to have that work ethic and to kind of do some things on our own. And I think, so you saw how hard my dad worked. My mom too, she came from a family, like, her whole side of that family has sort of that same spirit too. Like, my grandfather had started a multitude of different businesses and sold them off, and some ended, and right. And that side of the family, several of them have owned and run businesses too. Mm-hmm. So it's just always around it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the older I got, the more serious I started to take it. And it's like, then you start learning, like, okay, you have this responsibility. And I started doing IT work. I mean, it was, this is way back, but like Y2K,
What are you talking about? That was only yesterday.
right? Like, it feels like it. I know. Is it 2024? It is 2024.
It is 2024.
It is so weird because if
Yeah.
the 20-some-year-old version of me or the teenage version of me realized, like, hey, it's at 2024 and, like, look at the last year or whatever, I'd be like, no way.
No way. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, just I think for me it was having those kind of collective experiences, and my parents always encouraged it. We worked in the business too. Like, I remember, so my dad was a college professor.
Right.
We always had like a multiple choice thing for exams.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sell them out, but I feel like it was like a nickel for like 10 or something. It was, I mean, I got to a point I was like, this is terrible. You'd have to match the multiple choice and grade. I was doing that.
So you were grading papers for a
multiple choice, but accounting papers. But yes. And then he'd review it, but I'm pretty sure I got paid, pennies on the dollar to help with that. Because he was working like 2 jobs. Right. I did the best that I could as, a teenager. So if there's anybody that didn't do well in his classes, accounting classes.
It was Barrett's fault.
Yeah, it's all my fault, right? You just blame me. Don't blame my dad. Or my brother did that too. Mm-hmm. And there were probably a lot of other instances where I would say we did that as a family, or there were opportunities, used to be at the office. It was, cleaning when we were teenagers. Always, there was just always something. Running errands, like when I first got my license, it was delivering tax returns, going to the copy shop, doing, that was just always had to do something.
So you're a courier.
I was.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it that way.
That's the fans. You didn't even put that on your resume.
No, I wouldn't have. Not a 16-year-old driver in Wilmington. Definitely not. Yeah. Sometimes things would get there fast. Sometimes not so much so. But I think, and I always had an interest in computers.
Okay.
That was always going on behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. So I had some interest in video games and that kind of stuff, but I think most kids like our generation, like they did, but I really loved playing with computers, building computers. And then I remember at some point I was like, this is what I want to do. Okay. I didn't want to do accounting. I don't remember at what point that hit me, probably late teens. Mm-hmm. I was like, somehow I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go. And I mean, the industry has changed so much. Back then it was, you could build computers and you could sell them. You could help people with IT problems, but that meant getting in a car and driving somewhere and then working on site, which I did that for a while. And we started the company, so Earney IT, Earney Consulting. Like we started that. I started it in 99, 2000. And
yesterday.
I know.
2000 was yesterday.
Like my dad said, like we're an overnight success that only took 30 years. Right. Like, I mean, but that's the reality. And that has been like the main part of what I've done probably. And then in the firm, I just naturally fit into that IT role. Mm-hmm. So as the firm grew, like I had more and more responsibilities there. As you can imagine, like that's one industry, accounting is an area that it kind of is involved in everything. Mm-hmm. So as time grew, firm grew, company grew, it's like, well, I had to develop new skills, spend more time. Exactly. And it worked out. And thankfully that this industry has evolved into, I look at like what we're doing here now. It takes tech to run this. Like my kids have a sense of understanding of technology even more so than I do, when I was that age. Mm-hmm. Like it's just in everything that we do now. So
absolutely. We are in the digital age where we touch it at every point in our day.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So that was like I think that was just a natural progression over this period. Like and being an entrepreneur, it's like, okay, at some point you got to learn how to sell your services. Right. It was always referrals. It's like I did really good here, then they refer me here. Mm-hmm. And there's so much that goes along with that. And I would say for me, the last 5 years has been, working within the firm and the other, and so both Earney IT and Earney & Company, really trying to find this balance of like, this is fun, but then this is fun. And I don't know. I've never been diagnosed with ADHD, but I feel like there are times where I'm like, okay, focus, get in your lane, and just let's knock it out of the park. And I can do that, but it's I like to do things that I enjoy doing,
absolutely. Absolutely. And we're going to hear about more of that after this break. See you on the other side.
Hey guys, it's me, Rhema T. Have you been loving the content from Today with Ray? Well, while I'm working on season 4, make sure you head to the YouTube page and watch all the previous seasons. There's so many gems, so many inspiring stories, so make sure you head there. Oh, and don't forget, hit that subscribe button.
Welcome back, everyone. Again, we are here with the fabulous Barrett Earney with Earney IT and Earney & Company. Yep. I got it right this time. Yeah. In the first half, we talked all about his childhood. We talked about how he is essentially a third-generation entrepreneur. He also had a lot of side hustles, lemonade stand, courier. He was a college professor, test grader. Like,
I completely, absolutely.
But now he really is his own business owner, which we love. I do want to dive straight back in, and we kind of hinted to some of the struggles or some of the hard decisions that you have to make as an entrepreneur. Yeah. And we left the last half saying how in 2000, which is yesterday, people. How that's when you kind of came to know, okay, IT is what I want to do for a living. And I want to stop and pause and just commend the fact that you persevered a lot for your company. And it's admirable because a lot of people say that you have about a 2 to 3 year window to really legitimize your business. And so to hear that through every obstacle, through every hoop, through every fire in the ring, you said, no, this is what I'm going to do. Yeah. And so with that, I want to know, I want to pick your brain in that stretch of, I'm not even going to say how many years, you can do the math.
Lots of years. I'm sure that there were a lot of pivotal moments where you had to make some hard decisions to really get to where you're at today. I would love to pick your brain to kind of go down memory lane to say, oh my gosh, as an entrepreneur for all this time, these are kind of the things that I've had to put a bump in the road for. No, I actually, I think that's a great question. You start thinking about some of the challenges over the years, and, you know, because I was in IT, that industry in particular, I knew, okay, I had an opportunity to make good money. Mm-hmm. And I think at least starting out, I got it. You know, the first time you get a client and you're spending time with, it's so exciting.
Yep.
And because it's IT, sometimes the numbers are bigger. Like if you're ordering hardware, you're getting equipment for people. And so all of a sudden it feels like maybe you're way more successful than you really are. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I think one of my first challenges was realizing, okay, and it took a while. I mean, I look back now and I'm like, man, if I had done X, Y, Z, right?
Of course.
But it's, controlling spending. That was probably my biggest. That is so stinking hard.
Yeah.
Like, because you're making good money, and your natural instinct, particularly if you're in your 20s, is going to be, okay, hey, I'm doing good now. Like, okay, this is awesome. Money's coming in. I can get more clients. Things are progressing. But as you progress, it was almost like, okay, my lifestyle, even for a 20-year-old, was really good, mm-hmm. you know? And so I got to travel. I got to do things. But I'm like, I think the first challenge was realizing, okay, I needed to be putting a lot of this back into the business. And I got into I'd say early on, it's like, are you spending too much personally? And are you letting that intermingle with the business? And so it gives you a false, almost unrealistic view of like what you're actually making.
Right.
And so trying to sit, like budgeting, planning, and then you have life events. You know, you get married or you have kids, and things change, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa. Right.
Yeah.
And I think for me, absolutely being self-employed, it was like trying to find that balance. And it took a lot of time and a lot of discipline to be like, okay, I've got to scale back, or this is too much, or, as I really should be putting this back into the business. And like, what is a legitimate business expense? Right?
Yeah.
Because I think people's impressions of that is like, because not all spending is good spending, right?
Absolutely.
So that was the first, like, trying to decipher. And here's the crazy thing. I had access to CPAs and accountants and people who could help guide me. And my dad is awesome. And he's worked with some huge businesses here in Wilmington and has, helped them do all these really great things. But then, sometimes when it's family,
it gets a little tricky.
Tough. It gets tricky, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like, that created its own set of challenges too.
Right.
And so it was like, okay, allowing your lifestyle to grow too fast and then not focusing as much as you need to on the business. Mm-hmm. So that's probably problem one. That was my own doing, my own, and honestly, if I was in my 20s and my dad would have said, hey, you need to be doing this, or even my brother who had, he's a CPA, and he could have said, I'd probably been like, whatever.
Right.
Because it's hard to listen to.
Your family, people closest to you.
So I think I always cared a lot about my clients. Mm-hmm. I genuinely would go out of my way in making sure that they were well taken care of. And I think in our industry, like, people talk about cybersecurity and all that, and I always feel like it's like you're pushing this. Like, nobody wants, it's like not a fun thing to deal with.
Yeah.
So over the years in the IT business, helping people have it, like, as I learned more, helping them to learn more too.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a real challenge. Like, okay, I can't just go in and say, this is what you need to do and this is how it should be. I had to educate them. I had to really explain why this made sense, why you needed to do this. I think that helped somewhat, my dad being an inherent, like he was a college teacher. So like being able to teach people like why these things were better, that understanding that I think was really important. And then understanding too that not all clients are great clients. And
that is such, that was chef's kiss, because as an entrepreneur, you just feel like I have to grab all the clients that I can because like bills have to be paid, but then you end up with that client.
And if you really want to take good care, and like most entrepreneurs are like, they're kind of like people pleasers too. It's like, I really want my clients to be happy and I want everything to be like the ones that I think succeed, like have that ability. But the danger in that then comes, it's like, do they appreciate you, or do they appreciate maybe you're cheaper than everybody else? Like, what is it that they're actually appreciating?
Exactly.
And the last several years that's been, I think, a big challenge, is trying, like, with, the cost of labor and people and trying to take good care of people.
Right.
Like, understanding what that means, like, for us or employees, like, okay, that means we've got to increase fees and rates. And some of these clients that have been with us like a really long time, they don't like that. Mm-hmm. And then you start to realize, were they with us because of, the reputation and the hard work and all of this effort and energy that was put into taking care of them? Or was it maybe they're inherently, some of them were cheap and they just like, maybe our pricing was really good.
Right.
And that's really tough.
Right. I could
fight that.
Understand that.
Especially when you're like, well, they're not that bad, but we've had some that like they treat on the IT side, treat some of our team just awful. Mm-hmm. And they're just rude or disrespectful. And one of the biggest challenges has been like, and they don't always know how bad they really are.
Yeah, right? Of course. Most of them don't.
Right. But it's to say, I think for us, especially like the last few years, like, no, like this is not going to work. Mm-hmm. And then finding a new home, finding a new home if we can for some of those clients. I would say at the IT company, like we've had our ups and downs, and that sort of naturally like can happen. At the firm, it's been a real challenge, like, because if you're in accounting, like it's a inherently, that skill and that profession is always in incredibly high demand. Absolutely. So it's very, to get really amazing talent and really great people, it takes a lot of time and energy and money. And you want to keep them. And you want to keep them happy, and you don't want them to have to deal with clients that ask you to cut corners or are difficult or disrespectful.
Right.
That's not what I want for the people who work for us. And I wouldn't tolerate it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And I think that goes into, as the business owner, kind of some of the moral obligations that you have, because when you have employees, now you are in care of someone else's mental state, their priorities that they have. And it's like, how do you weigh keeping the client or telling the client, hey, you need a new home, because you hold the moral obligation to your employee? Yep. That's a hard one.
It is. I would say, and I think it's been a challenge for us, even culturally, at the firm, to kind of get over this obstacle. We've, like so many businesses during COVID, like we had a lot of people, what do they call that? The great, had a term for it.
They did.
The Great Resignation, was that
there it is. That's it.
And us, just like anybody else, we lost a ton of people.
Right.
Some really good ones. And so I think it's a realization. And same in the IT company, like you had to make hard decisions. You have to understand sometimes partners you think are partners aren't really that. Right. And so hard decisions happen. But I think for us, and I'll say this in both companies, and this is truly what I believe and what I want, and I'll say leadership has helped with this like leadership pointing, but is making sure that we put our people first.
Yeah.
Like and here's what we've been experiencing. Like the last few years, we really have put a lot of effort into, training and paying people like like making sure we're always looking at, are we competitive in the market? Right. Really, we've always had really good benefits as like a company, but then it's like, hey, what can we do that is the next step? Like what more can we do?
Mm-hmm.
And the happier our people became, and like the team that we have now in both companies, it's like their work ethic, the effort that they put out, like everything else is just coming, like everything. Yeah, it is amazing. And it's the environment now.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like now just like clients, they want to be a part of that.
Right.
Clients that we've had for a really long time, like they can see the changes there. But it's really the people. And we just are sort of like, and I feel like I'm just an advocate for making sure that everybody's really taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if you're looking at it from an IT perspective, stuff works,
yeah,
isn't breaking, and our team
Right.
does a good job of making sure they have what they need. And so I feel like, that's certainly been a big challenge, but it's one like we're in 2024.
Yeah.
It's
I know.
crazy.
We are tripping out over here that it's 2024.
I know it is really weird to me. But we've kind of gone on this journey in both companies, and I really feel like 2024 is like it's our year, like for everyone there. It's just exciting.
Yeah.
A lot of energy and just, man, there's not a person that we have in either organization that I'm like, they've got awesome talent,
Mm-hmm.
abilities. Like I can see them going so much further than they are even right now. Like that's exciting. And then I feel like that energy and that momentum, like I have it, I feel it,
Yeah.
they feel it, it translates. That means they're going to be doing better work,
job. Yeah.
better communication.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's really exciting from that side. So,
It's
challenge into an exciting, positive thing.
But that's the journey of entrepreneurship, that you'll have your ebbs and flows and your highs and lows and your pitfalls of challenges, and then you get really excited about something.
Yeah.
And that is the beauty of the journey. You talked quickly of how Leadership Wilmington is kind of making you look at how in a whole you can treat your employees better. I want to ask, how has Leadership Wilmington shaped you as an individual or as a boss, really? Which you kind of touched in of your overview for your employees, but the mentality as a whole, I would love to hear that.
No, that's actually a really great question. And it's one I think, just to be honest, I'm still, as we've worked through this year together, like with our class, like I'm still figuring a lot of it out. And I feel like our roles and our responsibilities, like for what we do, keep changing, and we have more put on us, and which is good.
Mm-hmm.
That feels very much like being actively involved in business. For me personally, I would say I see like, if you look at our class as a whole, and I walk in, I didn't know anybody really going into this class. Last year, I knew a few people. This year, didn't really know anybody. And now I'm starting to appreciate how much talent people can have and abilities. And like, they may just seem like a normal person.
Yeah.
And then like, they're doing these incredible things. And so I feel it's helped me, one, not be as judgmental. Like I've looked at things. Yeah.
Listen.
Like not so quick to
December hit me of not being
good.
so judgmental. I'm not going to share it because you have to go through Leadership Wilmington. So sorry, guys, but
fair
December.
Enough. That was tough. Yeah. It did hit me because I look at opportunities I've had. I look at how my parents raised my brother and I. We had challenges. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Like it's crazy. Like I feel like sometimes I could write a book about my life, but then I look at everybody in this class and I go, there's some really amazing people. And so like when I am at work now, somebody's having a bad day or like somebody's performance or what, like things are off. I start to look at it a little bit differently now. I go, okay, what are we doing wrong?
Yeah.
What am I doing wrong? Like, where is this on me? What can I change that can help this person? Because this is different than where they were.
Right.
Like, and so that's helped, being so judgmental. Way more accepting of challenges now.
Yes.
Like, I did not, and hey, I would take stuff on, and my wife's like, "You're not taking on another responsibility, are you?" And I'm like, "No, sure, not."
Yeah.
Like, but I do feel it is given me a new appreciation for trying to balance things too. And this year, like, particularly because I'm in fundraising, and that was not an intent, like I don't know how I actually got involved in that. Maybe it seemed like at the time, like the smart thing when we were picking our responsibility.
Look,
I don't know.
Laura, who's kind of over Leadership Wilmington, always put out, like, make sure you push yourself to do something that you normally don't do.
Yeah. And then
You did, I didn't. I'm in the marketing group.
Yeah. No, but then they made me chair of fundraising, and I'm like, and the one thing they said was like, okay, well, if your next few months are going to be really busy, like you don't want to be chair or co-chair or anything like that. And then all of a sudden, I find out, oh, they made me a chair. I'm like, okay. But I don't like to back away from a challenge.
Right.
And I feel like it's really helped me to identify myself. Yes, I'm competitive. I have to be careful with that. But then also, like, going through all this, we did good, and I feel really good about where we are, and I'm excited, and
You've done amazing.
I feel like the whole class has.
As a chair, I just want to point that out. Like, you led the charge.
Okay.
For us to be very successful this year.
No, I appreciate that. But I do feel like it's helped me take pause for a minute, because I think when you make decisions, you do start to realize, I have 3 kids. So, like, that day, the time that I'm putting to that is coming from somewhere else.
Right.
And so I feel like, and this is just, as an entrepreneur, you have to start realizing, like, you're not invincible. You can't do everything.
Right.
So delegation, like, I have learned more about delegation the last 3-4 months, and trusting the people I work with, where they're like, hey, I got it. And, like, I'll say it this way, like, at Earney & Company, we have a client accounting team. They do, like, bookkeeping, fractional CFO services. Well, I wasn't using them.
Yeah.
I was still doing it myself.
Wow.
And I'm like,
Barrett.
No, it's dumb. I was really stupid. But we've got such an amazing team. I'm like, no, I made it a goal. I'm like, I've always been doing this. Like, remember, son of an accountant, I need to be in the books. And I'm like, in December,
you got it.
Plate. Totally took it off. And so I'm like looking for ways to delegate responsibilities, but at the same time, picking up new things that I can learn or help in different ways, and understand, like, that's not a weakness. We should never feel like proper delegation, helping other people, training people who are like half my age. And I'm like, you guys, you're way smarter than I am.
Yeah.
And then letting people fail. Like, I think we've all failed a little bit in leadership, but it's like figuring out, what is that, like, what can I learn from the failure?
Right.
And then, particularly with people we work with, it's like, let's not hold it over them. Like, let's learn from it, and then let's move on. And feel like, okay, that's okay, and be supportive.
Yeah.
That's helped. Leadership's helped with that too.
Yeah.
So, so much. I'm sure we could probably think of like 10 patience.
Yeah.
Help with patience. I think that's been a something too that. Yeah, it's just been a really cool experience.
It really has. And for anyone that's here in Wilmington and is in the business community, I would really urge you guys, if you want to really get into the nitty-gritty, the weeds of what makes Wilmington, to go through that program. You've talked a lot about how it enriched you, so I almost feel redundant with my last question, but I ask this to everyone. What advice would you have to anyone that's looking to be an entrepreneur?
That's a great question. One, don't give up, persevere, because it'll feel like there are times where I might have even said it's like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah,
I'm tired of this. Discipline, work hard on if it's just keep at it. So that goes back to not giving up. I would also say, like, don't forget the basics. If you're going into business, learn about business.
Yeah.
I think every business has accounting is a good part of that. Accounting is super boring.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really is. But you need to like get to know what the basics
Mm-hmm.
are. There's so many great YouTube videos and opportunities now where like you don't have to pick up a thick, like learn GAAP accounting. It's like this.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to go read a 3,000
The accounting
page,
for dummies.
Right. But I think there's so many ways that you can learn and then ask peers, ask people, talk to people, like have conversations. Because and it's not about sales.
Right.
It's about just getting to know people and developing these relationships, because I think the business community, in particular in Wilmington, wants to help each other out.
Very much so. Very much so. As you see, he's helping me out by being a guest on the show. But no, I really do feel that's one of the special things about Wilmington. I feel like that's why everyone's trying to migrate here, because they hear through the grapevine that it really is such a great business community, because it's not so much, the dog eat dog or competition. Right. It's really just companionship. Like, it's about building the relationship and really working together.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it reminded me, because there was some article, I think it was State Magazine or one of those, like North Carolina's like the #1 state for business or something. I was like, what does that really mean?
Yeah.
Then I started to think about it from this perspective. I'm like, the IT business or the IT industry is very competitive. But if you meet competitors that like real competitors that are doing a really good job, take good care of their people, and they're in the same market with you, like I've gotten to know some of our like true competitors, and like they're the same. They may be competitive, but they're most of them are really good, genuine people that are working hard and are figuring this thing out too. And like, you can be open and honest with them and have some trust there.
Right.
And so I've really appreciated that. And the last year, even for me, is having communication with some of those people too. You learn a lot from them, even if they're your competitor.
That's very true.
And I think that's a plus. But
that was such a well-rounded answer. Don't give up. Lean on your competition, because they're not really your competition. Yeah, with that, that's our time, guys. I hope that you enjoyed watching. Thank you to Elevate Co-working for this beautiful space. Thank you to Ernie for coming. Barrett Earney. Look, we had laughed because the name it's a
first
long
name, last name combo, so don't even
look. Thank you, Barrett, for coming on the show. Thank you to my producer, Vance, with Truth and Image. And thank you for watching this episode. Until next time, I'm Rhema T. Bye.
Hey guys, it's me, Rhema T, and I hope at the end of this episode you felt super inspired to shop within your local community. But make sure to tune in next week, where I'll have another entrepreneur to talk about their journey, here only on YouTube.